What makes a good friend?
A friend is somebody who you meet up with often.
When people play with you. Always hugs me.
A good friend is someone who picks you up when you fall, makes you laugh, plays with you whenever you're sad, and would just do lots of things for you.
Helping you and just being kind.
Give them some of my toys. To be kind to each other and you don't argue. Or if they listen to you very nicely, we can play with them or we can play with somebody else. When you be kind to them and you never argue with them.
Accepting for who you are and what you're doing every day.
If they're kind to you, if you're ever sad or angry.
He's always been there for me to help me.
If you're playing the game, you can let them join in, and if they don't want to, you can just say if you want to join in, you can.
I think makes a good friend is that they take care of you, and if you fall over, they help you, they pick you up. I think a good friend makes you happy and is always lovely to you, and it's always funny and nice to you.
Are you a good friend?
I actually don't know, but I've got a lot of friends in the class who know that.
Just a couple observations from that. First of all, kids with a British accent, just adorable, right? I wish my kid had a British accent. Secondly, and more importantly, is I think that in some regards, children are better at friendships than us adults are, right? Now, there are obviously limitations to a child's friendship, right, to how deep that friendship can go. You may have noticed before, children can be friends and not even know each other's names. They're like, yeah, this is my best friend. What's his name? And they're best friends. They're playing, and so there's limitations to how deep it goes. There's also limitations to how much they can support one another. If one kid sees another friend bleeding and crying, the only thing they can really do is cry too. Like, oh, I'm crying now. And then they hope that someone else will come along and help them. So there's limitations. But even with those limitations, I think we as adults can learn from children some important lessons about friendships, right? And every kid is different, but generally speaking, kids tend to be a lot more open to new people than adults are. As adults, we develop some inhibitions, some hesitancy about meeting new folks and introducing ourselves and all that. Kids, they just barge right up and they're like, hey, what's your name? Let's play. And they're off and running, and they're, best friends before they know each other's name. Children also, I think, are better than adults at moving past hurtful things. Right? They have a little argument or whatever, one pushes another one down, and they need help usually kind of dealing with that issue and the offense. But once that's dealt with, they move on really well. They're back to laughing and playing together before you even know. This is like it never happened, right? They just forgive and move on much easier than adults do. Children also show us just a fundamental reality that we're built for friendships. We're wired to have friends in our lives. To some degree or another, it's our natural inclination to seek out friendships and connections and relationships with people. Now, at the same time, we live in a world that makes that hard sometimes. It works against having good, healthy friendships in our lives. The general mobility in our world, I think, works against good, healthy friendships. Never before have we had the ability to move around our world with so much ease. We can just go just about anywhere at any time, and we do that a lot. Right? Whether it's traveling for work or relocating for family, whatever it may be, we move a lot in general. Very few people, it seems anymore, stay in their hometown, right? Usually when I meet people, one of the questions I'm asking them is, where are you from? I assume that they've relocated to wherever I am at, just as I have relocated to wherever I'm at, right? And I assume this, and occasionally I'll be surprised when they say, oh, I grew up here. And you're like, oh, you're one of those people, okay, weirdo. And because in general, we move around a lot. Relocating is almost an assumed part of life. And that brings value, right? We meet a lot of new people. We get to see a lot of different things. And so there's value in that. There's also some costs that come with it. Part of the cost is to our understanding and experience of friendships and how to be a good friend. I remember hearing from a Marine one time. They had gotten orders to Hawaii, so they were getting ready to leave, and he was commenting how he wished they could stay because his kids had made good friends, and he wished they could keep those friendships. And that reminded me of something I had heard from a military kid one time. He said, yeah, growing up in the military, he learned to make friends quickly and easily. And I'm like, so that's it's at least a silver lining, right? And this Marine I was talking to said, that's true, but, because he had grown up in the military, kid as well, he said, I also learned to just keep things pretty surfacey. That I'm only going to be around for a little while, so I need to make friends fast, but I don't need to go too deep because I'm only going to be around for a little while. And now, as an adult, he was finding it pretty challenging to develop deeper, good friendships because he had always just kept things on the surface. And so it cuts both ways. It's good and it's a hindrance to us. Also, I think that our experience and understanding of friendship has been tremendously impacted by our digital world and our virtual lives. We all live in at least two worlds here, right? With the world that we live and eat and breathe in. And then there's also our digital or virtual world that we live in that's layered on top of everything that we do on a daily basis. And this, more than anything else, has shaped and redefined our understanding of friendships. Because I can be here physically in Stafford, but digitally, virtually, I can be anywhere in the world connecting with people all over the place. And so it's redefined our understanding of who is our friend. And especially with social media, has redefined what a friend is. And in the worst case, or the extreme case, in our virtual worlds, a friend is nothing more than a name on a list that gets an occasional update of how things are going. And we might see their update from time to time. And it really leads to nothing more other than being slightly informed observers of one another's lives. There's not real actual friendship. Now, I'm not preaching against social media. That would be pointless. But we cannot ignore the impact of our digital lives in our physical lives and in our experience of friendships. I think this is very telling when you consider that Generation Z and the millennial generation, so we're talking about people in their teens all the way up to late 30s, they report the highest level of digital engagement. They're using technology and the internet more than anyone else in the world. All right, they're connected to more people in more places than anyone else on the planet. They also report the highest sense of isolation and loneliness. More connected to more people in more places, more alone than anyone else. We're wired for friendship. We're wired for these relationships, but our world and the walls we build up in our hearts, all the scars that we get from those friendships, work against having good, healthy friendships in our lives. And so we need some help. We need some help. We need wisdom to guide us. How do we navigate this reality, these realities? And so we come to Proverbs today. We want to gain the way of wisdom from God's word. On a number of topics today, we're focused on friendship. What wisdom can we gain so that we can do friendship better? And before we get into actual Proverbs, I want to draw a little bit of wisdom from the realm of sociology. And sociologists have defined at least 4 levels of connections and friendships that we develop with people. And this will help us, I hope, frame our understanding of and the value and the role that friendships play in our lives. The first level is known as the public level. And the public level, this is the largest, broadest, weakest connection that we have with people. It's built on any shared commonality we have with people. All right, so this public level can be defined by everyone that lives in your neighborhood, or everyone that's, at the same sporting event that you are, everyone that's in your branch of the military, everyone that's in your field of profession, whatever it may be. You have this one shared, you may have no other connection to them, but you have this one thing That's the public level. At church, that crowd is everybody who comes to Stafford Crossing, which is much more than the people who show up in your service or on any given week. There's at least 1,000 people or more that would say, Stafford Crossing is my church, right? And you don't know that many people there, but this is the public level. This is the crowd that you're in Costco wearing your Trust and Follow Jesus shirt, and you're pushing your cart, and someone else has the same shirt, and you're like, hey, I don't know you, but we got the same shirt on. We go to the same church. You don't talk. You might wave to each other, but that you have this shared commonality that we belong to the same church, all right? This is the public level. The second level is called the social level, and the social level shrinks it down significantly out of this public crowd to those folks who actually know you, or at least recognize you within that larger crowd, right? And so it's not your whole neighborhood. Maybe it's just the neighbors on your street, the people that you know when you wave on your way to work, Maybe it's not everyone in your building. Maybe it's just the people on your floor, the people that you pass at the water cooler or coffee pot or whatever. You have the casual interactions with them. At church, the social level would be the people that always attend the 11:10 service with you, assuming you always attend this service, right? And you know that yep, so-and-so is going to sit over there, and that loud singer is going to be over there. I'm going to hear them in just a minute. And you have this recognition of one another on a social basis, and you wave to each other. Maybe you exchange pleasantries at the coffee pot or around the umbrella tables. You have this social interaction with them. The next level is the personal level. And this brings it all the way down to the relative few people who actually know you. And you actually know them. It's beyond recognition. These are the people that we usually define as good friends or close friends. It's not everyone in your neighborhood. It's not everyone on your street. It's the neighbor you actually invite over for a cookout. Okay? It's the coworker who knows about your life outside of work. They know where you went on vacation, or they know that you have kids. They know more about you than just those casual coffee pot kind of things. At church, these are the people that would be in your small group, the people that you serve on a team with, that you're spending more time with, and you're sharing more of yourself with you. They know when you're struggling with something. They know the things that you're worried about at any given moment. They know the things that you're celebrating in your life. These are good friends. They're on the personal level. And then the deepest level of connection and friendship is the intimate level there. And this level brings it all the way down to one, maybe two people in your life. If you're married, your spouse would definitely should fall into this category, because this level, they know the naked truth about you. They know all there is to know about you, and you're not afraid or ashamed for them to know it, because you know how much they love you and how they are there for you, that the depth of this relationship. All right? So you got your spouse. You may have one other person of the same gender that would fall into this category, but it's really only one or two people in your life. These are the four levels in general or depths of friendship that we experience. All of them are valid. All of them are important. They all serve a purpose in our lives. And as we're talking about friendship this morning, we are not suggesting or telling, we're not going to learn that we need to move as many people as we can into that intimate circle, that we just got to cram it full of people there, because it's not healthy. It's not realistic. It's not possible to do that. The point of it is, what I hope we walk away this morning is an understanding of how do I develop healthy friendships? How do I be a good friend in all of these levels, especially in that, social, personal, and intimate level? How do I do that? And in the book of Proverbs, we find wisdom that helps us do that helps us identify those friends, helps us be those friends and to have those relationships. Now, their world was drastically different than ours, right? They did not have to consider and factor in all kinds of things that we do, and we don't consider the things that they had to consider. But the wisdom that is in Proverbs here for us is of the caliber that it transcends time and culture. That these things define good friendships regardless of time and culture. And so we can benefit and grow as we learn from it. So let's dig now into Proverbs and see what God teaches us here. One piece of friendship wisdom that we find tells us that a good friend is consistent. A good friend is consistently present and engaged in our lives. Right? You've heard the term fair weather friend. It refers to someone who is always there when things are great. You know, when the sun is shining, the flowers are blooming, that friend is there with you. As soon as the skies darken and things get rough, you turn to your friend and you're like, and they're gone. Where did they go? They bailed on you. They hit the road as soon as they saw something hard coming along. A fair weather friend is not a good friend because they're not consistent. Proverbs 17:17 talks about a good friend, and it says this: a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Now, in their day, the family unit was the single most important social structure, right? They were the people that you relied on and turned to for everything. And here, the writer of Proverbs elevates the value and the role of a good friend to that of family, equal to family. He says, a good friend is there at all times, just like a brother is there when those hardest times when you need them. A good friend is as valuable as your family. And this good friend is there all the time, no matter what is going on. Now, I think our mobile society makes this consistency both challenging and so essential for our lives. It's challenging because we move around a lot, and it's hard to be consistent long term. It's hard to find that consistency long term. We can do it for a season, but then we move or we relocate, whatever it is. We're gone, and so we lose that consistency. That also makes it necessary because if you're like me, you don't live anywhere near your family. And, when hardship comes, calling for family that's 10 hours away, not nearly as helpful as a good friend that's 10 minutes away. And so we see, and it highlights the necessity of that consistency in our friendships and identifying those good, consistent friends in being that good and consistent friend. Now, on the public level, that broadest connection level, consistency doesn't really matter, right? If I'm not deeply connected to someone, it doesn't really affect me if they're inconsistent here. As we move closer, as we bring people into the social and the personal levels of life, you can see how consistency matters. If I'm going to bring them into my life and connect with them more deeply, or at least want to, consistency matters. And when we get to that intimate level, it would be impossible to have that depth of connection if that person was inconsistent, if they were in and out and not reliable, right? And so we can see how, as we move closer, consistency matters in our lives. I imagine that all of us could name some people from our lives that fit this consistency feature, an ideal. That they are in our stories when we're talking about that good time and we're laughing and so was there. And then so was there too, during this hard time. Because they're consistently and present and engaged in our lives. Good friends are consistent. Also, Proverbs tells us that good friends speak truth. Good friends speak truth. In 1837, Danish author Hans Christian Andersen published a story. He wrote quite a few. This one in particular is pretty well known. It's called The Emperor's New Clothes. And in this story, the emperor hired two deceitful tailors to make him a set of clothes, of new garments. And these tailors were deceptive, and they said, "Oh, Emperor, we are going to make you a set of clothes out of this most fantastic material. In fact, it is so fantastic, it's magical. Only those worthy enough can see it in its glory." Oh, that sounds great. So they start to pretend to make these garments because obviously this cloth does not exist, right? So they're just sewing air, and they're going on and on about it and talking about the colors of it and the embroidery that they were putting into it. And they present these pretend clothes to the emperor that only those worthy enough can see. And of course, the emperor, wanting not to appear unworthy, says, "They are amazing. Those are the best clothes I've ever seen. Your handiwork is outstanding. Let me try them on." And then the emperor's staff and advisors, they're getting on board with this too because they don't want to appear unworthy to see these clothes. And "You look amazing, Mr. Emperor. You have never looked slimmer than you do right now." Right? And they're just pouring this on. And then the emperor's walking around in his pretend clothes, and everyone in the village, in the city is like, "Looking good, sir. You are looking good. Those clothes are fantastic." Except one little child. who, as only children can do, in those critical moments, blurts out, "Hey, the king's naked." And everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, she said it, he said it," and it goes on. But here's the point. Honesty matters. And the value of having people around you who speak truth into your life, who speak truth. And Proverbs 27:6 talks about this with us. And it says, verse 6, "Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." You see, an enemy, or someone that just doesn't care enough about you, will see a problem, they will see a flaw, they'll see some kind of dynamic that might cause you harm, and they will say nothing. Or worse, they will tell you, "Everything's fine, you're doing good, keep on going, you're good, you're going to fall into that pit." Right? They won't tell you that. They'll let you go on and they'll let you crash and burn, and then they'll just step over you and go on their way. Because they're not a good friend. A good friend sees that dynamic or situation or flaw in you, and they have enough care and love for you to speak truth because they're a good friend. And they will say, hey, time out. And they'll speak truth into your life. At work, a good friend is the one who pulls you aside and says, "Hey, I don't know if you realize this, but you were really rude to that person in the hallway." Giving you the chance to go back and to make that right, to repair whatever your rudeness had done. At school, the good friend is the one who pulls you aside and says, "Hey, you've been a jerk all day. What's your problem?" Right? Giving you the chance to speak up, to share what's bothering you so that they can help you with it. In your small group, the good friend is the one who points out and calls you up and says, "Hey, friend, we've been missing you at small group. You haven't been around in like a month. I know you had a little bit of travel, but you've been in town. Where you been? We really miss you, and we want you to show up to youth, to small group." Right? They're giving us the chance to re-engage and to be a part of community. They're calling us out when we need that. In life, the good friend is the one who hears us complaining about something with work or spouse or kids, and they say, "I got to tell you this. Do you realize that you're doing A, B, and C that kind of creates the problem? You're complaining about it, but you're contributing to it as well." Have you ever considered that? Right? These things all hurt. We don't want someone necessarily to come in there and to probe those uncomfortable things in our lives, but we need that from a good friend. And those hurts from a good friend can be trusted because they help us and they come from a good place. There's definitely a difference between a good friend doing that and someone that's just trying to tear us down, right? And we know that. Ephesians 4:15 instructs us in this. And Paul is telling the Ephesians, he says, "Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. As we speak truth to each other in love, we will grow and mature in our faith. And we will become more like Christ." And it's love that makes all the difference. Right? It's not done out of wanting to hurt you. It's not done out of wanting to sabotage us. It's done out of love to help us grow and mature. Good friends are consistent and they speak truth, even when we don't want to hear it. And then one more piece of friendship wisdom in Proverbs tells us that good friends give life. They give us life. Now, giving life is a little bit abstract, it's a little bit hard to nail down, but we know when a friend is a life-giving friend. And we know pretty easily when someone is a life-taking person in our life, right? There's like that giant mosquito just sucking us dry, and we can't wait to get away from them. But a good friend gives life. I think one aspect of giving life reflects back to speaking truth, because a good friend gives us life when they lovingly tell us what we don't want to hear, right? Proverbs 27:17 expresses it this way: "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." And the idea is this: it takes two to be sharpened, to grow, and to get better. One blade on its own cannot be honed and made sharper and better. It takes friction between two. And as that friction in the right angle at the right way is done, the one blade is sharpened, right? And so a good friend will speak into our lives, causing friction sometimes, but it gives life as it results in sharpening us. I had a friend do this for me. He's a friend and mentor years ago. It was on one of those occasions that I fired off a hot email in response to something. And, I was angry typing and everything and sent that off. And then shortly after, Phil comes into my office, sits down and says, hey, I read your email. That was a dumb thing to do. And that was dumb. And I was like, what? And internally, I'm like, what are you talking about? I was justified in these things that I said. And he says, Dave, don't be the angry email guy on staff. Because if you keep doing that, people are going to stop listening to you. And when you have something worth hearing, they're not going to tune in. They're not going to care what you have to say. Don't be that guy. And that was good. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted him to high-five me and be like, oh, you zinged him. That was perfect. When you said this and that frowny face emoji, that was just right. Good job. But he didn't. There was friction there. He says, you're an idiot. You're a dummy. Don't do that again. And he made me better. When a good friend speaks into our lives to sharpen us, receive it and let it sharpen you. If we turn away from that, if we reject that, and we say, no, you're the dummy, right? And we turn away from that, then we become more dull. And that's our fault because we didn't receive the loving sharpening from our good friend. Conversely, good friends bring life when they share soothing words, right? Some words, friction, and they're sharpening. Other words are soothing and soothing actions in our lives. Proverbs 15:4 says it this way: the soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Right? We can bring life and we can crush the spirit. A good friend is the one who speaks and acts in such a way that even if it hurts a little bit, it results in bringing life. It makes us better. It helps and it brings us to a better place rather than crushing our spirit. These are the friends who can remind us of what God has said, the things that we need to hear from God in a given moment. These are the friends that can help us see past our own emotions and can see the best path forward. They can help us, remind us of the truth that we need to know. These are the friends that laugh with us, they cry with us. Sometimes they just sit there and they're like, yeah, this stinks. Let's just sit here, right? But they are there, and whatever they do, whatever they say, it's done in such a way and at the right time that it produces life in us and it helps us. Good friends are consistent. They speak truth and they give us life. These kinds of friends are a treasure in life. Not everyone is like this. But when we find these kinds of friends, they're a treasure. When we're young, our friendships matter so much, right? A lot of us would trade our family for our friends when we're younger, right? As we get older, somehow, maybe it's our responsibilities that we carry, but our friendships take a back seat a lot of times. But as adults, when we can find good friends, when we can be a good friend, it is well worth the effort and the trouble the effort in life, because they bring so much to us. They don't take away from us. So, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Let me encourage you to consider 3 questions for your life this morning. They're on your sermon notes on the back page. First of all is this: do I have good friends in the social and personal levels of my life? You see, the trap can be to live in the public arena. That I've got a lot of connections. I've got all these people over here that I'm very loosely connected with. And so we end up with a lot of connections, but also loneliness and isolation, because I'm not really deeply connected to anyone. It's just too surfacey. So do you even have people or enough people in the social and personal levels of your life? If not, what can you do differently to bring people into that part of your life? Maybe you need to hang around a little bit longer before or after church, right? Don't rush in and rush out, but stick around a little bit. Hang around the coffee pot or the tables out there and the lobby and just have conversations with people. Make the effort to converse a little bit more. Maybe it's joining a small group where you can have more of that personal level of connection with people that actually know you beyond the casual conversations, and you know them. Join a serving team where you can really invest some time. You can be shoulder to shoulder with someone accomplishing a task, but at the same time, you can share life with them. But how can you put yourself in an environment to have more of the social and personal level? And along with that, secondly, do you have the right people in the personal and the intimate levels of your life, and even in the social levels? Do you have the right people there? Are they people who are consistent and speaking truth and giving life to you? If you're like, some, maybe half, whatever. If you have people that aren't good friends in those circles, then you got to do something about that, right? Give the friendship an opportunity to grow and change, to say, hey, I'd really like for our friendship to be a little bit more than it is. I'd love for us to be more present, more there for one another. I'd love to hear from you the hard things that I need to hear. Can we become those kind of friends? Right? And if it does, great, you've got another good friend. If not, maybe you need to move them out to the public level, so that you can replace that friendship with something more meaningful and better for your life. And that takes grace. You got to do that well. Usually it's a text or email, but you do it really well. I'm just kidding. But you have to do that, make changes at times. And then lastly, turn it inward. Do I fit that profile of a good friend? Am I the good friend that Proverbs talks about, right? Am I there for people? Am I consistent? Can they rely on me? Do I speak truth, or do I just be like, yeah, you go crash and burn, right? Am I speaking truth? Am I giving life, or do I take life from people? How might you and I need to be a better friend? How can we be a better friend to others? It's a true proverb. It may or may not be somewhere in the Bible that says to have good friends, you got to be a good friend, right? If you want friends that give you life, you've got to give life back. If you want them to speak truth, you have to speak truth. And so to have good friends, you have to be a good friend as well. How can we be better friends? Ask God to shape these things in you. Ask your friends how you can deliver that for them. How can I be a friend that's more consistent in your life? How can I be a friend that speaks truth and gives life to you? How can I be that kind of good friend? We all want good friends. We need good friends, regardless of our age, but we're not always good at it. And a lot of things work against that in our lives. But I just imagine how amazing and rich our lives will be when we embrace these principles. When we become more of these good friends, and we have more and more of these good friends in our lives. I think God has some very, very rich relationships in store for us. So let's pray for those things. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love and your grace at work in us. God, you've made us for friendships. I'm so grateful you didn't wire us to be, isolated and alone. Life is just so much better with friends. Help us, God. We're not always great at it. We need your help to teach us how to be friends, how to be good friends, how to have good friends. And God, give us the grace to navigate that balance well. Thank you for your presence. In Jesus' name, amen.